Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into something pretty unique today. A beautiful place to get lost. It's, well, you could say it's philosophy, but it's written like poetry.
Right.
We're talking about life, meaning, those big questions we all ponder. Expert speaker, you ready to get lost in this with our listeners?
Oh, absolutely. It's like someone took philosophy and gave it this artistic makeover, using stories and imagery to tackle those really complex ideas. It'll be interesting to see what our listener takes away from all this.
Yeah. And that's what I love about these deep dives. It's not about us giving you the answers. It's more about getting you thinking, sparking your own thoughts about these things, listener. So this piece, right off the bat, talks about breaking free from this cage of simplicity. What do you make of that, expert speaker?
It's such a powerful image, right? Like a bird that's stuck in a cage, too afraid to even try to fly. I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling, getting comfortable, even if that comfort ends up holding us back.
Totally. And the piece connects this to the idea of wanting more. But it's not talking about the typical more, not more money or more stuff or anything like that. It's talking about a different kind of more, experiencing something truly original, something almost beyond words.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? We're so programmed to think of more as just bigger numbers, more of the same. But what if true more is a totally different experience altogether? Like the piece says, chasing the same things and expecting a different outcome. Well, that just keeps us stuck in that cage.
So listener, take a second and think about that. What does more mean to you? Is it more of the same? Or is it something deeper, something maybe riskier, something maybe a little scary even?
Which leads us to another big idea here, this question of the self. The piece really dives into what this I even is, the I that wants more, the I that feels trapped.
It's almost like we're deconstructing ourselves,
Yeah.
right? Instead of this fixed idea of self, we're seeing it as this collection of experiences, memories, everything that's shaped by the world around us.
And here's where things get really interesting. The piece argues that our identity, it isn't just something inside us, it's actually molded by things outside of ourselves, especially the love and acceptance we get from others. Listener, think about it. Your favorite music, the foods you love, even your beliefs probably developed because of experiences and people in your life, right?
Yeah, it really makes you realize how much our environment shapes who we become.
Yeah.
But where does that leave us, expert speaker? Are we just products of our surroundings, or is there something more to it?
That's the big question, the million-dollar question. But this piece offers a pretty compelling answer. Love, and not just romantic love, but this all-encompassing force, this energy that connects us to something much bigger than ourselves.
I love how the text describes it. It says that love, it's not a choice, it's a state of being. It's like this melting away of the ego, this realization that we're not as separate as we think we are.
Right. And that's where that story about the yak comes in. Right. You remember the yak cautiously approaching the author and eventually coming closer with trust. It's such a beautiful illustration of how love breaks down those barriers between us.
Yeah, that image really sticks with me. It makes you wonder, listener, if you've ever felt that kind of unconditional acceptance from another person, or maybe even from nature itself. How did it change your perspective?
And the piece, it doesn't shy away from some of the harder stuff either. It talks about the importance of doubt. It challenges the comfort we find in certainty.
It's funny. It's interesting how certainty can be like that cage we were talking about earlier. It can be so easy to get trapped by it, to let it stop us from exploring new ideas, or even admitting that we might be wrong.
Exactly. Certainty can feel safe, sure, but it can also be a trap. The piece argues that doubt is actually essential for us to grow. It keeps us open to different perspectives, to the realization that our understanding is always evolving.
Think about it, listener. Think about a time when you were absolutely certain about something. Did that certainty help you, or did it keep you from seeing things in a new way?
And that leads to another crucial idea, the power of living in the present moment. The text really emphasizes how important it is to live in the now, not getting stuck in the past or worrying about what might happen in the future.
It's this reminder that life is happening right now at this very moment.
Yeah.
And we, so often, our minds pull us away from that, don't they?
This piece, it uses this really beautiful analogy. It talks about a drop of water making its own path, experiencing each moment as if it were brand new. It's such a powerful image of how each moment is unique and fleeting, which makes it all the more precious, right?
It does make you wonder, listener, how much of your day are you really present for? Are you letting the past or the future steal your attention from all the richness that's happening right now.
And speaking of getting caught up in our thoughts, the piece, it also dives into this whole idea of stories. Like, it acknowledges how powerful stories are. They shape how we see ourselves, how we see the world. They're a huge part of being human.
But there's a warning there too, isn't there, about getting trapped by our stories, letting them limit our perspective instead of opening us up to new possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we all have these narratives, these stories that we tell ourselves about who we are, about our experiences, about the world. The piece, it points out how we compare ourselves to these stories, almost like looking for validation, Like, oh, I'm like that character, or my life is like that story. But what if that comparison actually keeps us from seeing the unique beauty of our own path?
It's almost like we're trying to force our lives to fit a script that's already been written, So listener, I want you to think about the stories you tell yourself. Are they helping you? Are they empowering you? Or are they holding you back in some way?
And throughout this piece, there's this thread of honesty. Like, honesty is this guiding principle. And it's not just about being honest with other people. It's about that deep, radical honesty with ourselves.
It's interesting. The author, he doesn't shy away from vulnerability at all. He talks about feeling lost, feeling confused, feeling like he doesn't have it all figured out. And it's almost like he's saying, hey, it's okay to not have all the answers.
Right. And that vulnerability, it's crucial. It allows us to let go of this pressure to be perfect all the time, to meet those societal expectations that honestly might not even be what we truly want.
Yeah. So listener, what does it mean to you to live an honest life? To really be authentic, to show up in the world as your true self? What would that look like for you?
And this brings us to one of maybe the most challenging concept in the whole piece, which is letting go.
Yeah.
Letting go of those attachments we have, the things we desire, the things we cling to for security, all of it.
The text uses this really striking image. It talks about carrying heavy gold bricks on a long trek. I mean, sure, gold is valuable, but carrying all that weight around, it's going to weigh you down. It's going to distract you from the journey,
It's such a powerful metaphor for how holding on to our stories, to our need to control things, it creates this burden that prevents us from experiencing true freedom.
So listener, think about it. What are you carrying that might be weighing you down? What would it feel like to release your grip on those things, to trust in the journey, even without knowing exactly where it's going to lead?
This whole idea of letting go, it actually connects to another fascinating theme that runs through the piece, which is this whole idea of what it means to be human. Like, it suggests that our whole experience here, it's about trying to create meaning, trying to make sense of this often chaotic existence.
It's almost like we're hardwired to look for order, to look for explanations, to try to figure out where we fit in this grand scheme of things. But what if that search for meaning is actually what's keeping us from fully experiencing life as it is?
The piece, it uses this example of a child seeing a piece of paper with markings on it. And to the child, it's just paper, right? Mm-hmm. But we've layered on all this meaning. We said this represents money, this represents value, and it changes our whole relationship with that piece of paper.
That's such a brilliant way of showing how we impose our own interpretations on the world, creating stories and meanings that might not even be inherent to the experience itself.
And that leads to the question, what if we could step outside those meanings we've created? What if we could let go of this need to define everything, to control everything, and just simply be in the present moment without all the mental chatter?
It's a radical idea, isn't it? To embrace the meaninglessness, to see that as a path to liberation. And that's where the concept of consciousness comes in. The piece describes it as the intelligence that allows us to create all this meaning in the first place.
But it goes further. It suggests that this consciousness, it's not just something that's limited to humans. It exists in all forms of life, each experiencing the world in its own unique way.
Yeah, it makes you realize how much we project our own human interpretations onto everything. We assume we understand what's going on, but maybe other beings are experiencing things on a completely different level.
And that ties back to the interconnectedness that the piece keeps emphasizing. Remember that line about love being a melting away of the ego and how everything I am is coming from outside. It's acknowledging that our sense of self isn't this separate thing, but rather a product of all our relationships and experiences with everything around us.
So, listener, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel more connected to the world around you? Or does it make you question the very boundaries of what we consider self?
The piece also dives into fear. It talks about fear as this barrier to experiencing that interconnectedness, that true love that it keeps talking about.
It's almost like fear makes us build walls, both physically and emotionally, to protect ourselves from vulnerability, from getting hurt. But but those walls also end up isolating us. They prevent us from forming those deep connections that the piece celebrates.
The text suggests that fear often comes from our attachments, our need to control, to define things, to hold on to things as they are. But what if true freedom actually comes from letting go of that control, from embracing the uncertainty of life?
Think about it, listener. Where does fear show up for you in your own life? And is it protecting you? Or is it preventing you from experiencing something more fulfilling, something more meaningful?
And the piece doesn't just focus on our inner world. It also explores this complex relationship between what we experience internally and what's happening around us externally. It suggests that they're constantly reflecting and influencing each other.
It uses the example of how our perception of an airplane, it's shaped by whether we've only read about them or seen pictures or actually flown in one, right?
Yeah.
It's like our past experiences create this filter that colors how we see everything.
Right. It highlights how important it is to recognize our own biases, our own filters.
Yeah.
What we perceive isn't necessarily reality, and being open to different perspectives, it can really enrich our understanding.
Yeah. It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, always different ways of seeing things. So listener, think about it. How do your past experiences shape how you see the world today? And are you open to challenging those perceptions, to seeing things from a new angle?
And that leads us to a pretty fascinating discussion about language itself. The piece suggests that words, as powerful as they can never fully capture the complexity of experience.
It's like trying to explain the taste of chocolate to someone who's never tasted it before.
Yeah.
You can use all the words in the world, all the fancy descriptions, but it won't be the same as that direct experience.
Right, and that applies to emotions, to spiritual insights, to so much of what this piece explores. Words can point us in the right direction, but they can't fully convey the essence of what we're trying to grasp.
Yeah. So the piece, it encourages us to go beyond language, to experience life directly, to trust our intuition, to trust our senses. Listener, think about those moments in your life that defied description, those experiences that transcended words.
Yeah.
What were those moments like for you?
And in that same vein, the piece also explores the power of silence. And not just the absence of sound, but that state of deep, stillness where we can connect with our true nature.
It's like stepping out of that constant stream of thoughts and distractions, finding that space of pure presence. The text, it acknowledges that silence can be uncomfortable at first because we're so used to all the noise.
But it also suggests that silence holds the key to true understanding. It's in that silence that we can hear the whispers of our intuition, the wisdom of our hearts. So, listener, I'm curious, how comfortable are you with silence? Do you seek it out, or do you tend to avoid it?
And this brings us to a topic that's often difficult to talk about, which is depression. The piece, it describes depression as the reaction of the mind, similar to how a fever is a reaction of the body.
That's a fascinating comparison. It's suggesting that depression might be a sign of imbalance, of becoming too caught up in our heads and neglecting our physical and emotional needs.
And the text highlights how our modern world, with its emphasis on productivity, on constant stimulation, it can really make that imbalance worse, can't it?
Yeah.
It's no wonder so many of us feel overwhelmed, feel disconnected.
Yeah, and so the piece challenges us to find ways to counteract that, to create space for stillness, for reflection, to reconnect with our bodies, with the natural world. Listener, what are the things that help you find balance? What helps you restore that sense of well-being?
Now, the piece also touches on these concepts of karma and rebirth.
Yeah.
But it offers a different perspective than those traditional views of punishment and reward.
Yeah. It suggests that karma is more about the natural consequences of our actions, like ripples spreading outward from a stone that's dropped in a pond. Those ripples, they keep impacting the world even after the stone has sunk to the bottom.
It's a reminder that our choices matter, that they have an effect not just on ourselves, but on everyone around us and even on future generations.
Yeah.
So listener, how does this understanding of karma influence your approach to life, to your interactions with the world?
The piece also explores this idea that our true nature, it isn't defined by the roles we play or the stories we tell ourselves. It encourages us to look beyond those surface layers and see the inherent goodness, the potential in all beings.
Even those who've made mistakes, even those who have caused harm. It's a call to move beyond judgment, to recognize that everyone has a story. Everyone has a unique set of circumstances that has shaped who they are.
Right, right. And that's where compassion comes in. The piece reminds us that we're all interconnected. And judging others based on their past, it prevents us from seeing their potential for growth, their potential for transformation.
So listener, how do you practice compassion in your own life? How do you navigate those moments when it's difficult to see beyond someone's actions, to remember their inherent worthiness?
And finally, the piece circles back to this tension between thinking and being. It acknowledges how easy it is to get caught up in our thoughts, in analyzing and striving without actually experiencing the present moment.
It's like we're constantly battling against the current, expending so much energy just to stay afloat. The text asks, what if we could let go of that struggle and simply be carried by the flow of life?
It's a provocative idea, right? To embrace being rather than doing, to find that sense of ease, that sense of flow instead of this constant striving. But it challenges those societal values that equate our worth with what we achieve, with how productive we are.
So listener, how do you find that balance between thinking and being in your own life? What are the practices that help you step out of the mental whirlwind and just simply exist in the present moment?
It really is a constant balancing act, especially in a world that values productivity so much. But this piece, it reminds us there's just so much more to life than just thinking and doing all the time.
Yeah, it really highlights those things we sometimes forget, the beauty, the joy, the connections, those experiences that we often miss when we're stuck in our own heads. So listener, how do you make space for those moments? What helps you get back to that feeling of just being?
And this ties into another theme that really resonates, which is, finding your own unique path in life. The piece encourages us to trust our intuition, to experiment, to realize that what works for one person might not work for another.
It's like there's no one right way to live.
Right.
We all have our own journey to go on, our own lessons to learn, our own definition of what a fulfilling life looks like.
And embracing that uniqueness, I think that's really key. It's about honoring our own values, our passions, our experiences, not trying to fit ourselves into some mold that someone else created. So, listener, what does your unique path look like? What makes you feel truly alive? What makes you feel like you're in alignment with your purpose?
The piece also touches on this really interesting idea that the world we experience, it's largely a reflection of our own internal state. It's a powerful thought, isn't it? Like, if we want to change the world, we have to start by changing ourselves.
And it's not about ignoring the problems in the world, the injustices. It's more about recognizing that our own thoughts, our beliefs, our actions, they all contribute to the collective reality we all share.
So listener, how do you cultivate those qualities that you'd like to see more of in the world? Are you being the change you want to see?
And that brings us back to honesty, which the piece really emphasizes as the foundation for creating a meaningful life. It's not just about being truthful with others. It's about that deep, radical honesty with ourselves.
It's about facing those shadow parts of ourselves, acknowledging our imperfections, and living in a way that aligns with our values, even when it's hard.
Yeah, the piece acknowledges that living an honest life can be really tough, especially in a world that often rewards superficiality and dishonesty. But it also suggests that true fulfillment comes from aligning our actions with our authentic selves, even if it means going against the grain.
So listener, what does it mean to you to live an honest life? Where are you being called to step more fully into your truth? Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels unconventional.
And this leads to a concept that I think is often misunderstood, which is happiness. The piece argues that happiness isn't something we chase after. It's more of a natural state of being. It arises when we let go of our attachments and we embrace the present moment.
It's like we're so busy searching for happiness out there in things, achievements, relationships, and we miss the joy that's already available to us right now.
The text uses this example of someone who's in love. They smile, but not because of any particular reason. They smile because they're filled with love. It's such a beautiful illustration of how happiness isn't a destination. It's a way of experiencing life.
So listener, how do you cultivate happiness in your own life? What are the things that help you shift from seeking happiness to simply being happy, to appreciating the richness of this moment right now.
And that brings us to this idea of meaninglessness, which might seem kind of paradoxical, right?
Yeah.
In a piece that's all about exploring meaning. But the text suggests that constantly searching for meaning, it can actually distract us from the richness of experience.
It's like we're so busy trying to figure everything out, to put labels on things, to find explanations, and we miss the simple beauty of what's right in front of us.
Yeah. It's a call to let go of that need to control everything, to define everything, to embrace the mystery and wonder of life as it unfolds. So listener, what would it look like for you to release your grip on needing an explanation for everything, to just experience life as it is?
Now, the piece also acknowledges that intellectual understanding has its limits, right? It suggests that true wisdom, it comes from experience,
Yeah.
not just from books or theories.
Yeah, it's one thing to read about swimming, but until you actually get in the water, you won't really understand what it's like.
And life is a lot like that. We can learn about love, about compassion, about freedom from books, from teachers.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we have to dive in and experience those things for ourselves. So listener, where are you being called to step outside your comfort zone, to learn through experience rather than just through your head?
Yeah.
What adventures are waiting for you?
The piece also offers this really comforting message that we're all capable of experiencing deep peace and fulfillment, no matter what our external circumstances might be. It's not about achieving some perfect state or earning our way to happiness.
It's about recognizing that peace. It's available to us in every moment if we just choose to tap into it. The text uses the image of a coconut tree, standing strong and steady even when there's a storm raging all around it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful reminder that we can find the inner stability too, that unshakable peace, even when life is throwing challenges our way. So, listener, what are the things that help you cultivate that sense of inner peace? How do you weather the storms of life?
And this leads to a reflection on death, which the piece presents not as an ending, but as a transformation.
Yeah.
It compares it to the cycle of day and night, the way a river flows into the sea. It's a natural part of the flow of life.
The text encourages us to embrace the impermanence of all things, to find the beauty in how fleeting experiences are, and to really live each moment to the fullest.
It's a powerful reminder that by letting go of our fear of death, we can truly embrace life. So listener, how does this perspective on death impact how you live your life? Does it inspire you to savor each moment more fully?
Now, throughout this piece, there's this underlying emphasis on open and honest communication as the key to really connecting with others and understanding each other. It acknowledges that we often communicate from a place of fear, trying to protect ourselves or trying to control the conversation.
But the text encourages us to shift that approach, to communicate from a place of love, to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to really, truly listen to what the other person is saying.
Right. It's about creating a space for understanding, for empathy, for connection. It's about recognizing that true communication, it's not just about exchanging information. It's about building bridges of understanding and compassion.
So listener, how do you approach communication in your own life? Are you creating that space for authentic connection, for vulnerability, for deep listening?
And this ties back into that interconnectedness that we've been talking about throughout this whole piece. The idea that we're all part of this delicate web of life, and our actions, they have a ripple effect far beyond ourselves.
Remember that image of the butterfly flapping its wings and how it could potentially cause a hurricane on the other side of the world. It's such a powerful illustration of how interconnected everything really is.
It's a call to act with awareness, with compassion, with a sense of responsibility for the well-being of all beings. So, listener, how do you bring that awareness into your everyday life? How do your choices reflect your understanding of our interconnectedness?
Now, the piece also challenges our attachment to material possessions. It suggests that true wealth isn't about what we own, but about the richness of our experiences, the depth of our connections.
Yeah, it uses that image again of carrying those heavy gold bricks on a track. Sure, the gold has value, but it's also weighing you down. It's preventing you from moving freely, from enjoying the journey.
Right. It's such a good analogy for how clinging to possessions can actually limit our freedom and prevent us from experiencing true abundance. So listener, what would it look like for you to lighten your load, to focus on what really matters, and experience the freedom that comes from letting go of that attachment to things?
And this leads to a really important point. The piece suggests that we often create our own suffering by by clinging to our desires and our fears. We strive for success, for love, for security, but because nothing in life is permanent, that clinging, it inevitably leads to disappointment.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that everything is always changing. And resisting that change, it just creates more suffering. The text encourages us to embrace the impermanence of life, to let go of that need to control everything, and find peace in the present moment.
So, listener, what are you holding on to too tightly? What would it look like for you to release your grip and just surrender to the flow of life?
Now, the piece also offers some interesting insights into the ego. It suggests that the ego isn't something to be destroyed, but rather something to be understood and transcended. It's a part of us. It gives us a sense of self, and it drives our survival instincts.
Right. But when the ego gets inflated, when we identify too strongly with our thoughts and beliefs, it can become a source of suffering. The text encourages us to cultivate a healthy ego, one that's grounded in reality, balanced by compassion and humility.
It's about recognizing that our true nature, it goes far beyond the limits of the ego. It encompasses that vast interconnectedness that we've been talking about. So listener, how do you navigate that dance between your ego and your true self? What are the things that help you stay grounded? What helps you stay connected to your essence?
And the piece, it doesn't shy away from the reality of suffering. It acknowledges that pain, loss, disappointment, these are all inevitable parts of the human experience.
Yeah. But it also suggests that suffering isn't something to be avoided or feared. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity to transformation. It's through our challenges that we develop resilience, compassion, wisdom.
It's a reminder that we have a choice in how we respond to suffering. We can let it harden us, or we can allow it to soften us, to open our hearts to greater understanding, greater compassion. So listener, what has suffering taught you? How has it shaped who you are today?
Well, listener, it seems we've come to the end of our journey through a beautiful place to get lost. It's been quite a deep dive, exploring so many different aspects of what it means to be human.
We've covered a lot of ground, from the cage of simplicity and the illusion of more, to the nature of self, the power of love, the importance of doubt, and living in the present moment. We talked about the track of stories, the path of honesty, the need to let go, and so much more. And while this piece doesn't offer any easy answers, I don't think that's really the point. It's more about sparking that curiosity, challenging those assumptions we have, and inviting us to look at life from a fresh perspective.
So, listener, what stands out to you? What resonated with you? What challenged your thinking? What left you with more questions than answers? And if life really is a story, as this piece suggests, what kind of story are you writing with your choices, your actions, your very being?
Until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those beautiful places to get lost, both within yourself and in the world around you.